Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Annette Cahill? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Annette D. Cahill was born on December 9, 1962, and lived in the state of Iowa. She married, had 2 children, and divorced at a young age. She moved in with her brother, Denny Hazen, and his wife, Jackie, in a farmhouse near the small town of Atalissa. This is about an hour southeast of Cedar Rapids. Sometime around 1986, she met a 16-year-old named Corey Lee Weinecke. He had been born on March 25, 1970. Annette and Corey had romantic contact, but did not have sex at that time. 3 years later, they started an on-again, off-again romance, which did involve sex. Annette was not Corey's only lover. He was engaged to a woman named Jody Hotz and having sex with another woman named Wendy. In July 1992, Wendy had Corey's child. Corey and his fiancée Jody lived together outside West Liberty in a house just off a gravel road. West Liberty is 5 miles west of Atalissa. Corey worked as a bartender at a family-owned bar. Annette worked in the same bar. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On October 13, 1992, at around 6:30 p.m., Jody Hotz called 911 and reported that she found her fiancé dead in the house they shared. When the police arrived, they confirmed Jody's suspicions. Here's what they found during the course of their investigation. Corey's body was face down on the carpeted floor of the master bedroom. Blood was everywhere. The sheets and comforter were wrapped around his legs, and he was only wearing his underwear. It looked like he was attacked in bed. Corey had sustained 13 blunt force injuries. 4 of those were to his head. The fatal blow was to the back of his skull. 4 strands of hair were found in one of his hands, but the owner of the hair was never identified. A baseball bat was found on the side of a gravel road about a half-mile from Corey's house. It was covered in blood, which matched Corey's blood type. This investigation was conducted before DNA testing was available. A local farmer had driven by the location where the bat was found at 9:30 a.m. on the day of the murder. He did not remember seeing a bat there at that time. When he drove by again at 1:30 p.m., the bat was there. This meant that Corey was probably killed during this 4-hour window. Jody said that she last saw Corey on the day he died. He was still asleep in bed when she left the house at 8 a.m. for her job at a bank. When she returned home at about 6:30 p.m., Corey was dead. The police were able to confirm Jody's alibi. She later moved out of the state and gave birth to Corey's daughter. Later, she married one of Corey's friends. As one of Corey's lovers, Annette Cahill was a potential suspect and was interviewed by the police. She told them that in the months leading up to Corey's death, their sexual relationship had intensified. They were having sex 3 or 4 times a week, essentially whenever the opportunity presented itself. The couple had sex outdoors, in motor vehicles, in the bar where they both worked, in an apartment above the bar, in the Hazen farmhouse where Annette lived, and in other places. The use of cocaine and alcohol was part of their relationship. Despite Corey having other lovers, Annette indicated that their romance was serious. They had big plans for the future, including running off to Branson, Missouri, and buying a bar. On October 12, 1992, the day before the murder, Annette worked the morning shift at the bar, and Corey worked the evening shift. They had planned to get together after the bar closed at 2 a.m. on October 13. Annette waited in the passenger seat of Corey's Cadillac as he closed the bar. When Corey walked out of the bar, Wendy was with him. His plan was to drop Annette off and then go spend time with Wendy. Not surprisingly, Annette was furious about this development. She had a heated discussion with Corey. After he dropped Wendy off at her vehicle, Corey went back to the Hazen farmhouse and had angry sex with Annette. She did not see him after he left the farmhouse. The police were able to determine that Corey arrived at Wendy's house sometime around 3 or 4 a.m. He then went back to the house he shared with his fiancée, Jody. Corey was still asleep when his fiancée left for work at 8 a.m., as I mentioned. As far as Annette's alibi, on October 13, sometime between 7 and 7:30 a.m., she visited a former sexual partner named Lester at a roofing job site in West Liberty. Lester told his coworker that Annette would be helping them that day. Annette had no experience with roofing, and it showed. For about an hour and a half, she did a poor job removing shingles. At this point, her sister-in-law Jackie picked her up, and they went to the residence of Corey Weinecke. Annette said she wanted to drop off a letter or a book or something. There was no answer when Annette knocked on the door, so she and Jackie left a few minutes later. The two of them ran errands in Iowa City for a few hours. The police considered Annette to be a suspect, but Corey had made many enemies due to his frequent and indiscriminate sexual activity. Any number of people wanted to kill him. Without any other leads to follow, the case went cold and stayed that way until 2017, when a police officer investigating an unrelated case visited a hospital where a woman named Jessica Becker worked as a nurse. When Jessica was younger, she was friends with Jackie's daughter, Kayla. Again, Jackie is Annette's sister-in-law, so Kayla is Annette's niece. Jessica had spent a lot of time with Annette through the friendship with Kayla. As the officer was hanging around the hospital, waiting to interview a victim, Jessica started a conversation with him and mentioned that she had information about the Weinecke murder. Here is the story that Jessica Becker supplied to the police. One night in October 1992, just after Corey's murder, Jessica, then 9 years old, was over at the Hazen farmhouse for a sleepover with her friend Kayla. After Jessica and Kayla went to bed, they decided to sneak downstairs. When they reached the bottom of the steps, they heard a noise and saw Annette in the dining room lighting black candles. Annette did not see them because she was facing the other way. The girls noticed that Annette was crying and heard her make several statements, including, "Corey, I never meant to hurt you. Corey, I'm so sorry. I never meant to kill you, Corey. And Corey, I love you." Jessica said they went back upstairs, but Kayla did not want to talk about what they just witnessed. Later, when Jessica went home, she told her mother, Cynthia, about what she had witnessed. Cynthia advised her daughter to let the police handle the case. Later, Cynthia explained how she was concerned for their safety. Her ex-husband was friends with the Hazen family, and Annette's uncle was the sheriff at the time. She didn't think anyone would believe a story from a 9-year-old. Armed with this new claim by Jessica, the police paid a visit to Annette. By this time, she had children and grandchildren and worked proofreading online courses for police officers. Annette repeated the story she had provided years earlier and continued to deny any involvement in Corey's murder. On May 31, 2018, Annette Cahill was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. She went to trial in March 2019. It was held in the basement of a building because the courthouse was under construction. The unrefined nature of the venue reflected the quality of the state's case. On March 12, a mistrial was declared after the jury deadlocked. They had voted 11-1 in favor of acquittal before 2 jurors changed their vote, which made it 9-3. Despite clear problems with the case and nearly having an acquittal, the state decided to retry Annette. Investigators managed to find a new witness for the second trial. A man named Scott Payne claimed that he saw Annette pull blood-stained clothing out of a vehicle's trunk on the Hazen family farm. Annette then put the clothing in a burn barrel and set it on fire using gasoline. In September of 2019, Annette went on trial for first-degree murder for the second time. The jury told the judge that they were hopelessly deadlocked, but the judge asked them to sleep on it and come back the next day. When the jury returned on September 19, they found Annette guilty of second-degree murder. They were not convinced the crime was premeditated. Annette was sentenced to 50 years in prison. She could be released as early as 2042, somewhere around the age of 80. Annette had dreamed of owning a bar with the murder victim. Now she will have to settle for being behind bars. Now moving to my analysis. Annette Cahill maintains her innocence, and she has many supporters. They argue that there was simply no credible evidence against her. The state, of course, disagrees and believes that Annette was guilty, despite their inability to present any clear rationale for that assertion. This brings me to the question, was Annette Cahill guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that she was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Corey Weinecke was viciously attacked while in bed. The nature of the murder is consistent with a killer who possessed a personal motive. Annette admitted to being involved in a sexual relationship with Corey. She claimed that he was committed to her and they were going to run away together. This does not appear to be true based on Corey's other extracurricular activities. During the early morning hours on the day of the murder, Annette and Corey were involved in an argument because he had another lover with him. Later that day, Annette stopped by Corey's house. Jessica Becker claimed that when she was 9 years old, she witnessed Annette talking to herself about killing Corey. A man named Scott Payne claimed that he saw Annette burn bloodstained clothing. Moving to the exculpatory factors, Annette had no criminal record before being convicted of murder. Most people who commit murder have other run-ins with the law. There is no physical evidence connecting Annette to the crime, no witnesses, no video. Crimes involving a woman beating a man to death with a baseball bat are exceedingly rare. It would have been a difficult crime for Annette to perpetrate, even with catching Corey off guard. He was 22 years old, a former high school football player, and in good physical condition. Jessica's story about the black candle incident doesn't make a lot of sense. She just happens to walk downstairs and witness a confession. Out of all the things that Annette could have said to herself in that moment, she just happens to apologize for the murder and even mentions the victim by name. She repeatedly mentioned his name, according to Jessica. This seems incredibly convenient. Annette's niece Kayla was right next to Jessica when this incident supposedly occurred, yet Kayla said she did not remember anything like that happening. Maybe Jessica was dreaming at the time, like she truly believed that she witnessed this bizarre confession. It's also possible that Jessica was lying. There's a strange connection between several players in the story which supports this theory. As I mentioned, Annette had once been involved in a sexual relationship with a roofer named Lester. This is the man who oversaw her failed attempt to enter the roofing business on the day of the murder. Lester was married to Jessica's mother, Cynthia, when Annette was having sex with him. It's possible that Jessica blamed Annette for Cynthia and Lester getting a divorce. Maybe this black candle story was designed to burn Annette. As far as Scott Payne, who supposedly witnessed Annette burning bloodstained clothing, he has zero credibility. 4 years after the murder, Scott told the police that he had heard from someone else that Annette had been seen burning stuff after Corey's death. His testimony during the trial represented a significant change in his story. Now he was saying that he personally saw the clothing being burned. Furthermore, he admitted that he was using alcohol and drugs at the time of the alleged burning. Corey Weinecke had made several enemies due to his romantic behavior. There was practically a line forming of people who wanted to kill him. After Corey was murdered, the husband of one woman with whom he had cheated killed her before bringing an end to his own life. Maybe this man killed Corey. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I think that Annette Cahill was guilty? I believe she was guilty in reality, but I am not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. The state had just about nothing to go on. I'm surprised they took this case to trial. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Corey Weinecke was immature, charismatic, gregarious, shallow, obnoxious, arrogant, loud, self-centered, grandiose, impulsive, irresponsible, hedonistic, cold, callous, excitement-seeking, intensely interested in sex, and a prankster. He had difficulty regulating his intake of substances and had a sense of entitlement. In order to satisfy his unbelievably high desire for sex, he surrounded himself with women who had very low partner selection standards. This included Annette Cahill. The behavior of Corey and Annette can be summarized in this way. Corey promised each of the women that they were a single, but his love life was more like a triple play. Annette was looking for a home run, but when Corey failed to step up to the plate, she felt like she struck out. Given the way Corey was stealing bases, Annette should not have viewed his behavior as out of left field, but to her, somehow, it was still a curveball. She decided it was time to move up to the big leagues and remove Corey from the playing field. She retrieved a baseball bat and knocked him out of the park. Annette pitched a perfect game. She did not leave much evidence of the murder behind. However, the state threw a wild pitch, which pushed the case into extra innings. They managed to hit a grand slam, but it really should have been called a foul ball. These Little League prosecutors made an error, which should have led to their induction into the Hall of Shame. Those are my thoughts on the case of Annette Cahill. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.